Hello and welcome to Scuttlebutt. Today we're taking a look at Stanley Kubrick's 1957 epic Paths of Glory, based on the book by the same name. Paths of Glory gives an unfiltered look at war from all angles. As always, I'm joined by Nathan.
Of course, I take a swig of water right there. Not gonna hide.
and two new co-hosts, Mike B., an Iraq War vet, history nerd, and Francophile.
Yep. Hey.
And Mike A., a history buff who has forgotten more about Omaha Beach than any of us will ever know, and an independent filmmaker.
Thank you, and fuck you.
So, hey guys, what's up?
Nice.
Good to be here.
Yeah. Good to be here.
So Paths of Glory. You know, I think it's a movie that we all like.
Paths of Glory.
Good point. You know, except it's black and white, so.
Yeah, it's actually not violent at all. It's there's no gore in it whatsoever, but it doesn't need it, which is fine.
Right.
Exactly.
This is the 50s version of gore, but it's minimal. It's at best minimal and
X-rated for 1957,
right.
but by 2021
they have the word sexual in it, which is a little strange.
Yeah.
You don't hear that word a lot in the 1950s.
And when people die, they don't flail their hands in the air.
They're just dead. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're just dead.
Yeah, right.
That was one thing I did notice rewatching this. Is like I watched Attack I think it was 3 months ago, and I remember seeing nothing but blah.
Yeah, that's whoa, you hit the mic. That's
technical error. Here we go.
Okay,
starting off fresh.
That was just common back then for actors and stuff to do that. But in terms of dying, it's even worse if you go back to like the 19 teens and 20s where someone dies, and it's pretty damn funny. You'll just have to, if you go look up the movie The Great Train Robbery from 1912, and you'll see some great dying in that. But interestingly, though, this movie, Paths of Glory, all of the extras in it for the battle scenes were played by German policemen.
Really?
Yeah, kind of interesting because they were filming in Bavaria, and they wanted people, who had some experience, with military and stuff like that. So that shot where Kirk Douglas is walking down the corridor of the trench.
Such a good tracking shot.
Right, they're all looking at him. Those are all German policemen.
Interesting. And I noticed because I watched it probably twice in the last 2 weeks, and it's all the crazy weapons they have. Of course, there's not all French firearms.
Oh, yeah.
But, but I did notice a few more shows and stuff the last time I watched it, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I didn't notice those, but I noticed the 3-band muskets from the Civil War. That they had with the locks. You could see that the locks clearly on those. So that's and then with the trowel bayonets, and it's like, okay, I get it. Like the budget might have been a little bit lower than most films, but still at that point. Because here's the thing: is what's funny is mixed in with that are 1886-93 Lebel rifles with the correct bayonets. Mixed in, and so it's like, yeah.
I noticed the Lebel rifles. During the firing squad scene, there's German Mausers being used.
Yeah, and in the tracking scene as well. There's a lot of those.
They switch them out. It's funny. Whenever they're going to shoot blanks, they switch them out to like Smith & Wesson Victory models. But when they have just the regular shots, they have the actual correct firearms. If you go on IMFDB, which is a great website, then you can see like all the different changes and shit that they did for it, and they did a pretty good job. Again, everything looks European imperial-esque. It's not like trying to dress M1 Garands up or M16s up for Gilded Age style manufacturing.
That's another thing. But no, in terms of we're talking about technicalities right out of the gate. I mean, like you just kind of have to accept that when it comes to old movies, it's going to happen.
Yes.
And it's understandable. Like people really give older movies shit. Like people love to point out the tanks in a lot of these old movies and stuff, like Patton and all that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like the internet didn't exist back then. I mean, and like there weren't nearly that many books written about this stuff back then. So it was like, yeah, of course they're not going to see it as a main priority. It's like, okay, it's a tank. We'll just put a tank in there and put a Balkenkreuz on it, and it's fine, But now thanks to the internet, we can shed light on all existence. And there are more nerds like us out there who, really see that stuff.
Oh yeah, we could be super nerds, and we're very lucky to live in the information age. But it's very true. I worked in a museum very on in my history career and my teens and stuff, And my director used to say, "Oh, when I wanted to learn about history as a kid, I would wait till Saturday at 11 p.m. They would play, War of Worlds, which was the BBC documentary." And it's like that's how I would get my 1 hour of good documentary footage every week. And today it's like you go to YouTube and you can just spend a week or 2 weeks or however long you want just looking at original footage and just seeing everything. So
the rabbit holes are a lot deeper than they ever have been.
And I think Brian's the only one here under 30. Fuck you. But the other thing is that I bet both the mics would say that we probably got our history mainly from the History Channel before it was aliens and whether or not Hitler's still alive in Argentina and ice road truckers and all that stuff. I would mainly turn on that channel and just be like, here's my history dump. Which one am I going to watch for my hour of TV my parents allowed me to watch?
Let me ask you this though, today, if you went back and watched those shows that you watched back then, would you roll your eyes at them?
Yes.
Probably, yeah.
100%. 100%, yeah.
Some of them, yes. Some of them, no. Like Enterprise 360, which is a really good documentary about the carrier Enterprise during the war. I've rewatched it the last 2 years. It's really good. Other things like Sex and the Swastika or whatever, some great 90s, documentaries.
I've never heard of that.
Sex
and the Swastika?
Sex and the Swastika.
What? And also,
what did Borman do in his, 2 a.m. in, Charlottenburg?
I'll add this to that is Tales of the Gun, right? Which is one of my favorite shows when I was a kid.
That was such a good show.
Right. I would add that is Tales of the Gun. I watched the episodes on YouTube recently, which is where my series on YouTube, Tales of the Thud, came from because it's so inaccurate. A lot of the shit is conjecture. It's just kind of these Fudlore myths that were perpetuated, and they actually presented them as facts. And I was like the show shot, the show shot, the CSRG 15.
It jammed all the time and was horrible. And
right. And it's exactly. And if you get into that, you go, well, the CSRG 18 was a piece of shit. Yes. Because they tried to design it for the 30-06, which the whole design did not function around that. But the CSRG 15, in its application and when it was, fielded properly by troops, it was actually a very effective weapon, and it was very state of the art and very whatever. And people are like, "Oh, it's the worst machine gun ever," because we view it as a modern application to something that was in the First or the Great War, And it's like, well. Yeah, even if you get one magazine off with that thing, rapid fire, it's still going to do more in an infantry assault than a bolt-action rifle would, And they don't consider that at all. So Tales of the Gun, with a lot of their things, they got a lot of shit just wrong, or it was Fudlore, And
sorry, Mike, keep going. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So I think the one that was, for me, that was the most unintentionally hilarious was Weaponology.
Yep.
Oh my God.
That's
that was bad.
Are you
on the military channel?
Yeah, on the military channel. Yeah,
yep.
that was that special ex-special ops guy. He's bald, right?
No, I think
I'm thinking Weapons of the Future or whatever. Future Weapons.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
The guy that he was like, this right
the same
here.
league.
Yeah, that guy was like, this right here is the AA-12, and it's just like, fuck you.
Yep.
The Rangers will be wearing these in 5 years, and it's like the suit, with everything, the Land Warrior program.
The exosuit.
Yes.
But funny enough, I actually have all my I can't
tactical skateboard.
I can't remember. I believe it's like War of the Worlds, or I think it's War of the Worlds, or something close to that. And it's I found it when my cousin gave it to me as a birthday present 10 years ago, and it's every single VHS copy. The problem is I've had a VHS in almost 15 years, so it's just sitting in my but I remember watching that on the History Channel, and those actually were pretty damn good and pretty accurate if I remember correctly. But I mean, I'm sure if I sat down with my books now and watched this, it'd be like, oh God.
Yeah,
this is Hitler's in Argentina.
Most of those programs are only written by one guy, so yeah, it's of course they're gonna fuck some things up.
I'd like to make some documentaries. I mean, that aren't shit.
Well, it's so Michael just brought up
so bad.
Michael just brought up a really good point. Is a lot of those episodes were written by one person, right? And so, you know, one person can be very specialized and know a lot about one thing, but they're gonna fuck up a lot of things. But at that point, when they're tasked to write this episode, they got to go, well, I am the end all be all expert on this, so I have to know, or I have to make it look like I know what I'm talking about. And that's where you get a lot of this FUD lore shit and this kind of like inaccurate information. It's like, instead of just going, I'd like to consult with other people, it's like you get this thing of like time constraint, and you know, you get this job and like you don't consult with anybody else. You just, all right, well, here's how it is. And it's like that like looking back on these things like on the History Channel, I've noticed a lot of that. It's like, it's not these people are stupid and they don't know their shit. They're just not specialized in every single aspect of what they're talking about. And they're, yeah, and that's fine, but they're expected to be, and they delivered, which is not good. You know, it's like, if you're specialized in one portion of that, that's fine. But also it was to save money, because then we don't have to hire, you know, more than one historical advisor or person working on this specific episode or this film. It translates into all of these different media kind of things. And that was a huge problem that I noticed. And it rears its ugly head in, like, you know, Saving Private Ryan, which at a later episode we can get into, like, in depth. Things like that. And yeah, Dale Dye, which he's a great guy. He knows his shit. But also, like, on the History Channel, it's like, Jesus, you know, it's, I mean, yeah, you got partially correct information going out there to your viewers, but you've also got a lot of bullshit that you don't really know about. You're just kind of regurgitating shit. And again, that was before the internet age too, like, really took off. And so I can't fault them, but it's still not good. It's a big deal, and it has to be rectified and corrected now. So
true. And it's funny how 40 years before those documentaries, you know, in the 50s, Kubrick got these things a lot closer to reality of the French army in 1915-16 than, you know, these documentaries would in the 90s and you know, later on. You know, it's funny. So he did have a really good manuscript to work with, because Paths of Glory is actually a real book, which I found out very recently, actually.
I knew it was a book. I've never read the book, obviously, and I know the book is based on a real incident that happened with 4 men instead of 3.
Yes. Yep. I guess they had, you know, cut production costs. You know, 3 guys, 4 guys. Who cares?
We don't want to pay for the 4th B guy.
Yeah.
But still, like, it doesn't matter, because in the film they were going to do 10 from each. They were going to do what, 20 or 30 guys. Yep. So to them, it didn't matter. It didn't matter. Like, the high command, like the generals, who were so far removed from this experience that was going on.
Very true. Incredibly true for the French
army. They might have had
point.
combat experience in the Franco-Prussian War, or, you know, something else. But, like, they were so far removed, they didn't know what the hell. And it's like, it's very apparent in this film, is like, they go up and they're doing their little, you know, the general's doing his rounds, and then they cower every time artillery goes off. And they're like, okay. You can tell they're just not used to being there, and the guys are, because they're not cowering. Like, the colonel is kind of getting behind cover, but he's not cowering, and so that also shows a disconnect. And so, yeah, to the general, 30 guys or 3 guys, it doesn't fucking matter. And so that, you know, to me, it doesn't matter if the original was 4 and this was 3, because it didn't matter to them. They didn't give a fuck.
And at the end, how the general was like, "Your men die so well." You know, oh, you always have the one guy that's, you know, oh, it will be bad. But no, they died so well, you know.
Yeah.
So what I like about it the most is that it follows an order from, you know, the highest echelon down to the lowest soldier getting killed, to the ramifications of what happens. You know, and it shows how everybody can be persuaded. We can't take the anthill. That's incredible. So you're saying it can't be done? Well, I'm not saying that. I'm saying, you know, my men, it's just incredible how, you know, things can be turned around and people can be turned around.
It was impossible until
even Kirk
that
Douglas, you know, he was convinced they could take it, and, you know, and obviously it didn't work out.
It was impossible until that star was kind of introduced. He goes, "Oh, I don't want to make you sway your decision." And the problem is that shit still happens today in the U.S. military. You know, in every military, it's like, that was very interesting. Like, he goes, well, okay, well, you don't want to do this. You say it's impossible, which is fine because it is at that point. And then, oh, well, they were going to give you another star and give you a command of another unit. And it's like, well, the things that I don't want it to influence your decision. Well, selfish fuckers at the top always are influenced by, I can get more rank. I can get more clout,
Once you get above major, and lieutenant colonel, it gets very political. And I knew a guy that eventually did. He's currently a general. And I know actually another guy's a general too. But, the jump from colonel, even the jump from light colonel to full colonel is really big. But the jump from colonel to general is very political and it takes a long time, and once you do it, it's just a lot of vetting and things. So, yeah, to have that dangle in front of you was a very big thing.
It's
but
also
even
very
him at the beginning, he was so, that's impossible to do. But
right.
just how the idea of something works on somebody without even pushing it. Just the thought of things.
It's also at that point you're so disconnected from your actual fighting soldier. You're so completely disconnected.
Yep.
Because you've been you were fighting soldier 20 or 30 years ago, in a different time period, a different war, and you've been in this cushy lifestyle since. You don't have a clue. It's all about you.
Which I guess at that time, which would have been what
1916.
Well, no. I mean, like you're saying 30 to 40 years before. Is that like Napoleonic? I don't know. My history knowledge.
It's Franco-Prussian or
right. Napoleonic's 1812. Exactly what you just said. Yeah.
Yeah, Franco-Prussian. Yeah. It would have been a possibility that 1870 and 1871 that they might have been there as a rifleman a musketeer. They still called them that at that point, and then it could have been a possibility, and then. That was the only combat experience these generals have had. That's it.
One interesting thing I remember hearing about this with the Gulf War, and I also heard about it with World War II as well. That like these guys kind of towards the end of one war, like they would sign up or be drafted or something like that, and they would train. But then the war ended. They didn't fight. But then they stayed in the military. So they have a whole career of being in the military. And then I heard about this with, the Gulf War. Like there were generals who they signed up, around Vietnam, but they didn't get sent over to Vietnam. So then when the Gulf War happened, they were like really gung ho. They're like, this is finally I get my war. I've been in this for 20 years and now I can finally do it. Right. And I get that a lot with the general character in this, in Paths of Glory, that he's just, he's not really gung ho, but he wants to be important, but he never really has been before.
Wants to be put in the history books.
Right. Yeah. Right. And I remember some people have said well, he's clearly seen some shit before. He's got a scar on his face. Like, no, that's a dueling scar. That's a dueling scar.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
That's a
Glasgow smile.
Right. Fuck? Yeah. That's from his time at the academy when he was fencing, and stuff. That wasn't. Yeah. That's not a battle scar. But so little important things like that you got to look out for.
And I'm sure Ackerman, this, and so Brian, you might be. Was it traditionally filmed in black and white, or was that a stylistic choice afterwards? I'm pretty sure it's stylized.
Stylistic choice, because actually most movies in the 1950s were in color. Color had really started taking over at that point. Like black and white is usually 30s and early 40s, but once
They were still doing black and white filming in the 40s as well, because I mean my background's animation and film, so
cool.
I know that to an extent, but I don't know when the transition was solely color or it was like that kind of hipster choice to pick to still do black and white. Sorry,
like 1950s, because if you watch most movies from the 50s, actually they're in color, and right. Like when Psycho came out in 1960, it got criticized for being in black and white. They're like, "What? What are you doing? What's this for?" But most films at that point would have been in color. Like To Hell and Back, which was 2 years before this, was in bright fucking color.
Right.
But the early bright color.
Because that's what makes me think it was actually stylized to be black and white and not traditionally filmed in black and white. Because you can normally tell when stuff's filmed for black and white because of the lighting is so intense. Because an example would be Brian, help me out. What was the Korean War film that we watched last time? That was black and white. Pork Chop Hill.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
1953.
That was actually, from my knowledge, and don't quote me on it, I'm guessing from the stylistic choices they were making with the lighting, it seemed like it was filmed in black and white. And I believe that was I don't know, I can't remember, like maybe mid-50s at that point. So it's just it's very interesting to see, like, and I'm pretty sure Kubrick probably was filming in color, but it's very interesting to see the differences between stuff that was filmed to be done in black and white and then stuff that is maybe stylistically changed to black and white. It's very interesting to see that.
With Kubrick, the first color film I think he made was 2001. Space Odyssey.
Oh wait, I have this thing called The Internet and
The
a
Killing,
Computer, so
which was earlier than this, which is great. Good crime film he made. It's black and white.
Spartacus is in color.
Oh, true. Yeah. Yep. So Spartacus.
Full Metal
Dr.
Jacket.
Strangelove is black and white.
Full Metal Jacket's from the 80s.
Yeah, Full Metal Jacket's in the 80s. Yeah. Say at the same time. But Spartacus would be his first color film then. Interesting. Yep. Yeah. But then he goes back to black and white for Dr. Strangelove.
He does, actually. That's another odd decision at the time.
So I think it's stylistic.
It is,
100%.
Yeah. I don't know. I got kind of a weird thing. I've never really been able to make up my mind about Dr. Strangelove. It's weird. It's
well,
go ahead.
It's interesting.
It is.
So just kind of a little tangent. There's the really recent documentary that just came out about the Beatles called Get Back.
Yeah. I'm watching it right now.
Really good. Mm-hmm. I watched it. I loved it. It's amazing to see that. And I've never been a real Beatles fan. I've been a big 60s music fan, but the Beatles were just too mainstream. Right. But I've always respected them for the music. And it's really cool to see how these, songs have their startings and stuff, and where creativity being filmed and things. And it's just really neat.
Yeah.
So, to see that, see where they wanted to go and then where they ended up, with Kubrick, when he was looking into doing a nuclear film or a film about nuclear war and stuff, he wanted to be very serious and he wanted to do it very seriously. But the more he looked into it, the more he realized how, this is fucking crazy stupid. So that's why he ended up making it a dark comedy. So it kind of reminds me of Get Back, because we're going to make the album. It's going to be great. We're going this way. And then it's completely the other direction.
Well,
holy shit, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah. What I find particularly very interesting about Dr. Strangelove, so in terms of movies that are popular, they'll have a movie that's really popular and then someone will come along and do a parody of it. You know what I'm saying? The comedic version of that.
Yep.
And it's it always has to come after the big thing that comes out, and then it's okay to make fun of it. However, with Dr. Strangelove, it's the opposite, because Dr. Strangelove came out, and then afterwards, Failsafe came out, and Failsafe is Dr. Strangelove, but it's serious. I don't know. Have you ever seen Failsafe?
I have, very long time ago.
Right, and it's and people were like, "Fuck this movie! I don't want to see this. I want to see the funny movie."
Yep.
So it's it's just strange. Which I think Failsafe is actually really interesting. I think it's underrated. But it's one of those things where the reason why Failsafe nobody really knows it exists is because the parody came out before it.
True. Yep. Well, that's the problem. Some films will get lost because of that. They're not that they're too obscure, but the comedy overtook that. Kind of like with Airplane and the original Airplanes. Looking back, people don't really know that there are all these 70s movies about disasters and airplanes and airports.
That's what the movie Airplane was parodying, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And now they look back oh, that's funny film from the 70s. I don't want to watch the Airport 1975.
Right.
What the fuck am I, commuting to LA?
Yeah.
They don't want to watch that movie, but they want to watch the funny one. So
by the way, it was originally filmed in black and white. So they were filming with black and white film. So,
Past the Glory?
So, yeah.
Yeah, and so another reason that I think they may have done that, and it's just me, it's totally conjecture, it's not a fact at all, is because when I'm looking at the French uniforms, the combat uniforms, when they're in the trench and they're doing all that stuff, a lot of those uniforms are not French. They're not horizon blue. They got pockets, they got breast pockets on them. Most of the French uniforms, 99% of them did not have breast pockets unless it was private purchase, and still you're not going to see
easy
that.
to manufacture.
Right, but so in black and white, you don't see the color. Like it can be light khaki and still look like horizon blue.
Right.
That's the trick they would do,
yeah, or your mind makes that jump that everything should be correct because I mean, you don't have that reference. I mean, like, and that actually leads into my question for you, Mike B, is because I know you're into World War I, particularly French. For like, as me, like for me, for example, I look at that and go, I don't know what's wrong, so it looks fine to me. Is there anything that screams that's just, oh God, that's like, it'd be like for, like, I guess for all of us could understand, like us seeing like 43s on D-Day, you know? Like,
okay, so
like
there's
that.
one thing that's, because it's, I'm not an expert on French. It's something that I've been delving into, and it's a massive rabbit hole. But the one thing that I will say is,
yeah.
no, I'm really not. For World War I, I'm not. I'm not at all. And I'm still learning every day. I'm learning a lot, but like it's very difficult to get accurate resources. But one thing that I will say that screamed like that's just not right is having their bayonets when they're doing the night raid, and then Lejeune gets killed. Spoiler alert: Lejeune gets killed. They're going out there and they've got their bayonets on their left side just hanging off their belt. No, they had in the uniforms on the greatcoat and on the tunic, which they would rarely wear, just the tunic alone. On a night raid, they actually might because it's less shit to get caught on stuff. But they had a loop that would go up through the frog of the bayonet and it'd be on your right side. And so they're having them on their left side just dangling the bayonets. Correct bayonets, but like just dangling. That's something that I was like, yeah, no, not going to happen. It's just not there. The French are very meticulous about their drill and ceremony. And like when they said, fix your bayonets, it was motion. It was all just bam, put your rifle on the ground with your left hand, pull out your bayonet with your right, fix the bayonet, and then bam. And so it was there for a certain reason. And there was an actual loop on the uniforms that would go through the frog to secure it so it wouldn't move around, on the belt. So it would always be right there. And so that's one thing that screamed. The rest of it is, okay, so one good thing they did is they used actual M1915 Adrian helmets, okay? A lot of these films in the 50s and in the 60s and stuff, they would be using the model 1926 Adrian helmet, which they didn't have that bead around the dome, and it was a 2-piece helmet instead of a 3-piece helmet. Well, actually 4-piece if you want to get technical. And so, but they also
rim
had
was like stamped twice or something.
No.
Second
The 26 was the shell itself stamped, and the comb was still a separate piece. And on the 15, it was the front part of the brim, the rear part of the brim, and the shell and the comb were separate pieces that were assembled in the factory. And so you can see this in Past the Glory. You can see on the sides of their helmets, they've got the rivets holding the two brims together to the shell. Somewhat to the shell, not really, but like that's a rabbit hole that I don't want to get into right now. But like they actually use 1915 helmets, which is a very good thing. Like I don't know where they got them. They're probably just available because of whatever, like surplus, or just somebody got a stash of them. Who knows? But they were actually the correct helmets, which is good. The uniforms and the gear was okay because they had the ammo pouches, the 1915, and I forgot what the distinction was, or the nomenclature was for the previous ones. But like the actual just box kind of ammo pouches on their front, they had that. And they had a lot of things right, but they also just half-assed a lot of things, which is fine. It's very hard to research that. And because it's in black and white, we can't tell the color of all these uniforms. So again, they could have been light khaki, and we would never know.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Like a famous thing is with the film is Paris Burning, which is a great movie, which we'll probably eventually get to. But when they were filming it in downtown Paris, they didn't want the German flags to be red and white like the original ones because Parisians pissed, occupation. It's been 20 years. Fuck you. So when they filmed it and they did it, they made the German flags with dark green instead of red because in black and white it would come out the exact same. So when they filmed the whole segment, and it didn't piss anybody off, like, oh, that's fine. So it's funny the tricks you can get away with black and white. But to talk about, uniforms and stuff, they did a really good job for the 1950s at getting it right. Even like you were saying, yeah, there's pockets and there's a few little things off. But, again, for 1957, it's just amazing. And I think that they did such a good job with the film and everything, that you can get away with these little grievances, because there's some movies and war movies especially you watch being nerds where you just rip it apart and it's like, oh my god, I can't believe XYZ, it just destroys the movie for me. But there's some really good movies,
especially of the same year too, in the 50s in particularly.
Yeah, well, like
it's
Blue
not
Max.
It's not Hollywooded, There's that's not to interrupt you, Brian, but it's like the one thing that Paths of Glory does really well. It doesn't seem very Hollywooded in that sense if we were to compare it to. I know it's years later, but what was it, Bridge of Remagen? Yeah, where it's you don't see that kind of Hollywood style type of stuff. To not to interrupt you, it's just I agree with you.
No, exactly. Yep. And it's funny because in this film you don't see any Germans at all. The only Germans you see, it's great. And it's funny because it's a really cool thing to have. And there's a few other movies that do that in the era, and not too many in the last few years. But as Mike will know, because Mike's an independent filmmaker, he's currently making a World War II film called Reveille about Audie Murphy and Italy and stuff. But, having to source uniforms for one side is a hell of a lot easier than having to source uniforms from two different opposing sides. So, maybe that's why just the French are so good in this. Yes, there's a little problems with rifles.
Well, there's a lot of, I could get a lot more deep into what was wrong in like the cut of these things, but to the average viewer, yes, it's okay. It represents the French soldier. Mm-hmm. That's fine. And that's all that they were going for, and that's all that we can ask for. So, also, really quick, I've watched it twice recently and once before. Is there a score to this film?
No. Well, no. A little bit. There's a little boom, 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 boom. Like it's
at the beginning.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Well, it's a drums. I think it's a drum snare. If I was reading that earlier,
during the night patrol scene, and it's just like the subtle. It almost sounds like distant artillery, which I think is really
right. Mm-hmm. So, but like, there's no official score though. Like through the whole thing, like it's not directing you on how to feel or because I noticed that, but I was raw. Like, did I just miss it or?
Well, the movie opens with the I forgot what it's called, the French national anthem.
The credits and everything. Yeah,
And it ends. I don't know if it ends on that song, but it also ends with a big burp, 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 type. But I would have. I was actually thinking about this when I was watching it because I love that last scene with the German girl and the singing the song.
And how everybody, how the crowd changes.
Right, and they start humming it, and then Kirk Douglas, he walks away. Then it turns into this montage of here's the cast, and they list all the actors and stuff, which kind of seems more of a studio decision. And I was just like, this movie would have been had a much more, I don't know, like bookend to it if just the movie just faded to dark, to black, and the credits rolled while those soldiers are humming that song. Like that would have been way fucking better.
I love how the sergeant comes up and he's like, we got to go back to the front.
Yeah, give him a few more minutes.
Kirk Douglas. I love that. That's just that's what a good officer would do.
I think isn't the ending like it's very 1950s where the credits roll and it's like that.
Well, that's what I was saying is that after that, then the music plays and it like shows this, such and such as like it shows a curtain call basically where they show like images of the actors and I'm like just dissolve it to black while they're singing, while they're humming that song and have the credits roll. That's all you need. Like, but no, I'm sure the studio was like, no, we got to tack on what we always do for endings, So
it's the age of McCarthy.
And ending of military films has to be semi-patriotic no matter what country. That's how they normally ended in the 50s, where it's like that. Nice sing-song ending.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It's like, go fuck yourself.
So you can have that in Reveille?
Yeah. We're gonna end Reveille with a huge fanfare and a curtain call. It's gonna be beautiful.
It's like Kelly's Heroes ending,
Well, Kelly's Heroes, like if you take that seriously, like come on.
Nate will come back from being wounded and I'll just fucking chomp into a cigar.
Isn't Kelly's Heroes a parody? Isn't that like?
No, it is. Yep. It's a parody. Yeah.
Yep. Love Kelly's Heroes.
Yeah, it's hilarious. It's the most 70s World War II movie ever made.
That's the thing about that's funny about the 70s is that like for their way of showing all how awful things are in the 70s was to like make fun of them. You know, like
right.
like MASH and Catch-22 and stuff like
Yep.
that. It's like, this is an anti-war movie. It's like, it's a fucking comedy.
Yeah.
It's weird.
It's funny how the era really depicts it, you know, and it really gets the even, you know, it doesn't have to be like in the States or in Russia or Europe or Africa. Like, you know, it just, the decade gets a certain feel or a certain vibe, regardless of a country, you know. So yeah, like the 70s is like that. So everything is a joke, you know. You got MASH, and then the 80s is like things are kind of super serious, but they're not, like Platoon.
In the 80s, things are in the 1980s. Things are Vietnam. That's what.
It's all Vietnam.
Yeah.
Yep. It's Commando.
It's conspiracy theories. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, it's
war movies in the 80s. They're like, we're gonna do fucking Vietnam movies up the asshole. And
excuse me, it's cop dramas in the 80s. Okay,
I'm talking about war movies, dude.
Tour of Duty.
Again, no. There's an in joke between me and Brian with Lethal Weapon and Die Hard.
Yes, there is.
Okay,
we'll get to how many screaming Mel Gibsons you rate this film.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on Mel Gibson.
Oh God. Oh no.
Oh, we gonna go fisticuffs, boy.
We'll see.
Jeebus.
Go ahead, Brian.
But I forgot what I was gonna say.
weird.
It's what the fuck?
Weird.
All right. On the next topic, Mel Gibson. So, you know.
Yeah.
Oh Christ.
When he was in Paths of Glory, he died really nicely in the attack on the anthill. He almost made it to the German wire. He would have been a good guy to testify.
I will transition here back on topic instead of going.
Well, I was going to say, but
I was just gonna peter off of that, just a sense of, in terms of 1957, or I believe that's when it came out, is the effects are very much, I think I referenced like Attack earlier, where it's like, you know, the flailing of the arms, deaths, and, you know, big puffs of smoke, and that's the hit and the fall and all that. The thing, they do have a little bit of that with the extras, but for the most part, I mean, you know, granted, most of the battle-like things are in the beginning with the trench charge and all that stuff, and it is very, very different from what you see of the time before, where it's, you know, gasoline explosions and, you know, pyrotechnics. Like my interests in movies particularly are practical effects. In the modern day cinema stuff, it's the CG versus the practical, and what looks great and what looks good, and so that's something my eye always kind of gravitates towards. So I'm always looking at and studying it, and the thing that really stands out to me with Paths of Glory in terms of the combat stuff, with the falling over and the dying, there's a flaming arms, but those impacts and those practical effects are really good, because most time in those periods you're seeing gas explosions and, you know, debris. Yeah, Michael Bay, but Michael Bay 20 years before Michael Bay. So it's like, it's very interesting to see those, you know, those effects and how well they do it, because it's impactful. It's not, you know, poof and then it's they got really nice practical effects, and even the background and the layering of that scene, you know, kind of layers on itself, and all the details you can see. Like, you can rewatch that trench scene and see all the different details. With every watch through, you'll see something new, especially in the back.
To piggyback off that, you know, I mean, the last real big box office Hollywood World War I movie was 1917, you know, and to compare that to this, you know, this is a much better movie. Like the green fields in 1917, you know, and all that stuff, compared to this, where it's like, this is probably one of the better films out there that depicts the hell of no man's land, especially when they're in it, you know. And it's just, you got to think about how hard it was for them to make a no man's land like that, you know, with shovels or excavators.
And it's all uneven. It's just destroyed. The land is destroyed, and it's like, you know, trying to negotiate that and whatever. And yeah, kind of going off of what Nathan was saying is like, the effects weren't terrible, because they just showed a big kind of explosion, and then there's a bunch of dirt and shit flying around. And it's like, that's what actually happened. Like, dirt clods and rocks and shit that the artillery would kick up was just as lethal as the fragments that would be coming out of them. And it shows them bouncing around the field and, you know, just weird things like that. And even though it's not perfect, it's not really super accurate, it's the most accurate you're going to see for a World War I film, especially from that time period. So, yeah, it's not bad at all.
Yeah, the only one I can really compare it to when it comes to these giant, you know, World War I battles is like All Quiet on the Western Front.
Which one?
The 1930s one, the one that had already been made.
Okay, yeah.
Not the 79 one.
Yeah, and there's also another one coming out, right?
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I think I heard about that.
There's a modern one coming out very soon.
Yeah. Quiet with the dick in your ass.
Yeah, it's
wow.
gonna be.
Whoa!
Here we are in Provincetown.
Whoa! Okay, all right.
That's what it's gonna feel like. But
don't ask, don't tell.
Just my opinion. But well, the thing is, like, I don't know,
2022.
Like, what's that?
Coming out this year. 2022. It's coming out this year.
Oh my God.
Daniel Bruhl is the main character.
No, but the thing with All Quiet on the Western Front is that that's one of those things I can't really, like, I've tried, I can respect that movie for, like, what it was at the time. I just can't watch it and take it seriously because, like, it's so dated, not in terms of, like, the, you know, effects on it, but it's just like, yeah, I know war is a bad thing. Like, it's kind of like, that's all it kind of has to say, which
well, I was just going to say, record what he just said and have it as a clip. Have it as a clip for.
Well,
look, I have him soloed with dick in my ass, so you know what? I have all the things I can do, so it's fine.
Well, there's worse positions to be in. We'll just throw it out there.
But just my whole point with All Quiet on the Western Front, it's like, I get, like, at the time that was like, wow, this is really daring to say all this stuff. But, like, when I watch it now, it's like, it seems kind of trivial.
Well, but the acting too. Like, let's just really quick. I have to comment on the acting and like why it was so kind of dated is because, like we were talking about in person, Michael, is like those guys were silent film actors, okay, and they got brought into the sound kind of production era.
That was 1932, so it was
right, and
early.
so they were still overacting
Mm-hmm.
like a motherfucker, like. And so that's why it gets kind of like distracting from, you know, even people that I know that are boomers, you know, they're like, they grew up with war movies. They're like, yeah, that was a bit over the top. And I'm like, yes, it's because they came from this era where you had to be so over the top, gesticulating on camera and like in all these physical and like, you know, facial motions and everything. And that's why. And so here's the thing is they tried to redo it in '79 and it was just as bad.
Yeah, that's the thing, though. That's what I say. Like, I don't really know if you could make All Quiet on the Western Front and, like, make it interesting now because it's kind of like everything in it is like, you know, the...
Well, next fall you'll be able to see if...
I know I will. I know I will.
I was gonna say, just probably coming off of Vietnam, that's probably why it's the same kind of feeling over again because it's like the history's repeating itself from...
How many of you guys have actually read the book All Quiet on the Western Front?
I read half of it. I read half.
When I was like in high school, I maybe read half.
So page 42.
Okay,
and then
so you guys haven't read the entire thing. That could be made into a phenomenal film. It could be made, but like here's the thing: is the people that get it again, they're so tied down with these bad habits that they've gotten ingrained whatever time period they do, like. If you were gonna do that, like,
so let's make a worst one in 2020, whatever.
Right. Well, we can make a better one if you want to think about that. But like, it's a really easy kind of work to make real if you don't have Hollywood as the fucking the obstacle you're trying to cross. Because like, if you want to just make it real, like Remarque wrote. It would be really brutal. It'd be like just really depressing and sad and like, well, this doesn't get better. It doesn't ever get better. It just usually books and works have their arch, all the shit, and then the whatever the resolution. It's like, no, this book doesn't have that.
It's about the way you depict it. Like, I mean, Mike and Brian, like our movie Reveille, like that's based on a book. However, like it's about the way you present it, and. Right. And it's like that's what I mean with All Quiet on the Western Front. It's like back then in the 30s, it's that's how they were able to present it at the time, and it's just kind of like I can't really take it seriously now because it's a lot of scenes of guys saying, "Well, they tell you that war is a good thing." Well, that's not a good thing, and it's like, it's like, all right.
It's interesting because I've seen the movie a few times, and I've always respected it for what it is. And it's interesting to hear this, looking at from the lens of a very early talkie, and that again it was a new form of media that they were trying to experience. My counterpoint was going to be that I agree when I watch it, I get a boring sense, not because of like I don't have a connection to it, but because I'm like, okay, it does its job. Like you were saying earlier, you know, okay, war is bad. Okay, you don't have to yell at you don't beat with a hammer.
That's
war
basically
is bad.
what it's. That's the only thing it's
Yeah,
about. You know.
Yep. I think it's great for what it is, and that it's a movie you watch once.
Yeah.
You know,
I've only seen it once.
Like,
and
it's enough. You know, it's not. I'm not saying it's like, oh my god, it's horrible. It's not like anything with. It's not Wind Talkers. You know? But it's again, it's just a product of its time. Respect it for what it is. And you know, it's
and that's the same opinion that we all share. It's just like because like I would encourage you guys. It's not a long read. Nathan, pull your fucking shit together. How about that? Pull your shit together, Nathan.
You think Wind Talkers is funny?
You threw in Wind Talkers as a comparison.
Dude,
didn't.
I watch Wind Talkers for entertainment. Like I watch it
because to do an episode on Wind Talkers.
I'm gonna one-hand a Thompson.
14 hours long.
I laugh my ass off every time I watch Wind Talkers. Okay.
It's so bad. Despite all my rage, I'm still just Nicolas Cage. You know, it's like
okay, guys, a Native American. You look like a Jap, fucking dress up like a nip. Come on, do it now.
Oh my god, we gotta make sure. Yeah, fucking. Oh,
hit me in the ear. Do it now.
That's another rabbit hole. We could do an entire podcast shitting on that piece of shit. But like
I said, it's gonna be 14 hours. You know.
Yeah, and so, but no, for like we're talking about because like Past the Glory is in the same category, I would say, as the original All Quiet on the Western Front. However, it was done a lot better.
That's what my whole point was going to be. Yeah.
Okay. So we're on the same page, Michael. Jesus, when has that ever happened before? But seriously, it's you respect it for what it is, and it's like it could be a lot better. If we all read the book Past the Glory and worked on a production and had like, you know, millions of dollars worth of the budget for it to get everything right, the effects, the scene, the uniforms, everything, we could do it in a very realistic manner, I think. Okay. And would it be good? Would it be popular? Maybe. Or would it flop? Who knows? But like, it's the matter of like, because here's the thing is like the 79 All Quiet on the Western Front, they did their best. Like Nate said, like, at the time, they did the best of what they thought they were doing, and exactly, yeah, that too. And they were using Turkish Mausers, which is really fun. But anyway, very cheap, very good.
On the same token of this, Mike, you know, Mike B, could you remake Paths of Glory today?
Yes, with the correct budget.
I don't think you can make it better.
I think you could be impressive. But I don't think you could nail the same, because how much of it is nostalgia though? Like, see, that's the other thing. It's like
okay, I was just gonna thank you. I was just gonna say I was like better in what sense?
Yeah, that's what that like. You would have to do something other than just what it already says, you know, because it already.
We could have 2 night patrols where people die.
Instead of 3, we have 4 prisoners.
Everything it has to say that's in it is already like perfect, you know, in terms of what it's like.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, you know. I mean, sometimes some things are made great. Like I think that you can't make a better Das Boot because Das Boot is so good. Like you know, if you want to watch a submarine movie about the war. Okay, watch it. You know,
and actually,
you can't make a better one. You can't make a worse one. So,
few fuck ups. Very few fuck ups in that one. There were a couple.
Yeah,
but it's not. I mean, considering like if you compare that against like, you know, you do an aggregate of like other war films, very good. So to answer your question, yes, I think we could make Past the Glory today. And here's another point: is how many people that are younger in our generation, or even a lot of the boomers or Gen Xers, have seen Past the Glory. You know what I mean? It's kind of a niche thing. Like, there's not a lot of people that have seen that. And so if you reintroduce it and you make it more historically accurate as far as like being in color, the uniforms and everything, and then have the dialogue. See, here's the thing is the dialogue in that film is very good. With Kirk Douglas and the other actors that are there, the dialogue, once you get out of the action, because the action is, again, it's part of the film, it's a part
of a war movie. That's the funny thing about
No, it's an anti-war movie, and but you have to have that action scene to explain what happens next, and you have to have it being a hopeless bloodbath, and it's just like it's fucked, and then things go wrong and whatever, and generals are getting ridiculous, and they're calling in artillery on their own positions, and then I can't do it without a written order, and they do that for a reason because of this kind of bullshit, you know. And okay, we could do that. We could make that film today, and I think it would be a hit, but it also wouldn't be as relevant because the Great War, nobody today really gives a fuck about that.
It's a dead war.
It's so
look at
old.
1917 though. Look how massively popular that was.
Well, sure.
You could frame anything, that you would think is not popular in a good light today.
That's
feel
fair.
Like I feel like 1917 though has that
Dallas
technological.
Buyers Club. Not to cut you off, Nate, but
No, it's okay.
like a guy that is buying drugs for his friends that have AD or AIDS or whatever in the 80s. I mean, you can make a movie of anything. It's just how you frame it. So.
I think 1917 has that lore of like a technological achievement. I mean, say what you want about the story and everything.
We filmed it on widescreen.
It is a very I wouldn't say revolutionary. It's a very impressive visual effects.
Correct. I agree.
Movie.
Avatar, but in World War I.
No, but the very long shots, like I thought that was, because I've seen it and I was like, I analyzed this and I thought 1917 was respectable in its own right. They got a lot of things wrong. They also got a lot of things right that I wouldn't have even
the green
expected
grass
them
fields
to.
of Passchendaele. I remember those.
Well, if you look at it as a technological standpoint, like someone who dives into that,
yes,
and is very passionate about it, and has an eye, because Brian's like been with me while I've watched. I'm like, that's fake, that's bullshit, that's the cut, that's a thing, that's like I can
well,
just
right,
take
yeah.
it. And it's like in terms of like that, yeah, I could
Butcher's
see when
movies.
stuff happens, but then going back and researching like all the technological stuff that you do to achieve those cuts and those transitions is very impressive, and I think 1917 as a whole is very technologically impressive, as you said, and as I'm saying.
Right, yeah,
I'm nerd rambling, but
no, it's fine. It's in its own right. It's a very cool film. It's a very respectable. I don't throw any shade towards it.
Brian's throwing shade at it, but I know you're not.
Well, that's because Brian's a fucking cunt, and he always will be.
Movie where the plot doesn't make any sense because everything else. It's like we have to send a message to this unit, so we have no other way of sending a message in 1917. We don't have field telephones. We don't have dogs. We don't have pigeons. We don't have messengers. We don't have anything. We don't have radios.
The Germans shoot the pigeons. What's wrong?
You just said we don't have messengers. Well, what did they do? They got messengers, right?
Okay, sorry.
All right, penis. All right, penis. Let's just settle it down here. Then you just refuted yourself within one statement.
Well,
so
you know the way it goes.
He called you a genital.
I called him a penis. But anyway, so no, but like going on that, like yeah, historically accurate. Don't want to get into that right now.
Greenfield,
as far as
Passchendaele.
Let's save it for actual 1917.
That wasn't Passchendaele, you fucking clown. That was the Brits.
Show me the World War I battlefield with trenches that has green fields between it.
Lots of them. The Somme.
Not 1914.
That wasn't 1914.
Green cut grass. Still.
Dude, 19.
After the race to the sea, show me a green battlefield in World War I.
There's a lot of them.
Okay.
A lot of them.
Full?
Actually, I can, and they're all black and white photos, but like there's a lot of battlefields in World War I that were not chewed up by artillery. They were actually very quiet sectors, and then they happened to launch an assault, and then whatever it was like. Anyway, we're going on a rabbit hole, but like I'll refute your ass any fucking day on that claim. It got less and less.
1917 is a little bit too,
No.
the West Lawn.
No, you're. Oh my God. Anyway,
hey Ackerman, how are you? How are you doing?
My name is Ackerman, by the way.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah, if it was Ackerman, I wouldn't be able to call him Michael Heart Attack.
I'm also Mid-Atlantic, so there's also that. So.
Oh yeah.
He's basically saying
is the thing.
He's basically saying he's retarded without saying it.
People from Maryland are just fucked in the head. So.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not a good thing. It's not good.
PSA for the full podcast.
Say it again. Say it again for my slow mind again. One more time.
It's Ackerman.
Ackerman. Thank you.
Yeah. Right. Think of Hearted. Think of this. Think of Michael. You know the Billy Joel song "I'm Moving Out," right?
Yeah.
The heart attack Ackerman thing.
That's what he first said when he first met me. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Ackerman.
I literally said that.
Ackerman.
So
okay, got it.
Ackerman,
I got
Ackerman.
it. Mike Ackerman.
Because Ackerman means he owns land, and he sure as shit does not. So we'll just go that route. All right, but anyway, so yeah, 1917, getting off of that, but like transitioning back. So the landscape in 1917, Brian's gonna be like, you fucking cocked, they're 17, like it was all chewed up. No, Actually, not terrible because they went
They got
off
on
the
their
beaten
John Deere
path.
tractors to mow the no man's lands.
Yeah, well, Jesus Christ. Anyway,
We're never gonna get off this.
Comparing that with the terrain, I'm trying to, but Brian's fucking preventing that. So so the terrain not terrible. Past the Glory, that was actually that was Verdun basically. They're portraying Verdun, and that place was a fucking hellscape. That place was. Yeah, that's what you're going to see and think of like when you're thinking about like World War I is just dirt, shell craters, barbed wire, shit just laying everywhere. That was a complete and utter clusterfuck on both sides. Like the Germans, a lot of the reasons they couldn't advance is because they had to get through all that shit. And that's the same reason the French couldn't. It was like, okay, well, whoever holds this position longer wins. And the Germans were like, well, we want to take Verdun because then we can get to Paris. We're only 15 miles out of the city. And they just didn't happen to do that. But it was ridiculous. And I think in Past the Glory, the terrain they portrayed, I don't know what they had to do. That must have been a lot of work back then. A lot of work. But they actually got it to look very similar to the original photographs I've seen, like after the battle and everything. Like after the war was over, like they took pictures of all these battlefields. And it's like, how could anybody even walk in that? There's no way. And so I think in this film, for that time, like they got that part really accurate, and all the debris and shit, the planes that were crashed.
I can't think of another movie that gets it that well done. I mean,
I don't know either.
60 is a really good movie as far as like landscapes and battlefields.
Well, the battlefield. The no man's land looks really good. Here's one thing I want to ask though. Okay, what about the trench itself?
Too wide. But that's because they have a camera guy on a track coming down.
That's not too wide.
You really think it's not too wide?
No, and at Verdun especially, it depended on where exactly you were. But
French
it's not
and German trenches too, and everything.
I'm aware. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, but you also look at the details of the French trench. It's wide, yes, but it's they're constantly going to have to do repairs to it. They're constantly going to have to. There's parts in when he's doing the walking shot, right? Where you see like this part's got wooden thatching basically, like with sticks and everything. This part got blown out and it's falling. Like you can see that. It's like the Allied positions in general were never meant to be static. They were meant to be, okay, well, we're gonna just sit here and we're not gonna be here for long, and so we're gonna have to advance, and so we're not gonna put that much effort and time and materials into this trench because we're gonna be moving forward. The Germans figured it out very early and they said, well, this is where we're sitting. This is going to be our base of operations. We're going to pour concrete up in this motherfucker. Okay? And they did. They made it very permanent. And if they would take a trench and they would hold it for a long period of time, which didn't happen very often, they would pour concrete and start building it up a lot more than the French, British, and then later on the American trenches, which were also French mostly and British. And so the Allied trenches are always going to be very hasty. They're going to be like, they're going to look really shittily dug. They were wide, though. That's the thing is, like, the ones that were there for longer, the longer they were there, they're like, okay, well, even if we're here another month, let's just dig a little bit wider just to get a little bit more, because then we can get, our wounded through. And so it was constantly improved. In Verdun in 16, where this takes place, that would have been an average-sized trench on the main front. Especially the anthill is like a very fortified. They call it an anthill for a reason. Every time they hit it, like more guys pop out. So obviously, the Germans have that whole hill dug out, and they've got a ton of guys up there. And so the French are going to be like, well, we have to get supplies and wounded through the back of our guys, so we're going to just dig this wider and forward as time goes on. Now, in another sector where it wasn't as action-ridden, it would have been a lot thinner because they would have just said, okay, well, we don't need to have this that big because there's not a lot of action going on here. We're holding our trench, they're holding theirs. So it was very variable. It was ridiculously insane. Like if you look at aerial photographs, even you can see this if you look really closely. There's sections of the trench that will be wide, like you see in the film, right? Very wide because it was a very active trench, and then you'll see below that it's a very thin, or 5.5, 6 feet wide, 6 feet deep kind of thing connected to that trench, but it was a less active sector. And so that's kind of why that particular one, they probably chose to do that wide. I don't know if that was luck or research, but it's not incorrect, in my opinion. So, Yep.
Interesting. So I knew about the whole advanced thing, but I didn't know about the whole like slowly make it better. So.
Right. They never let them make it. They never let them. They never let them really improve it that much because they were like, well, we're going to be on the advanced soon. So they would take out all those wood things and they dig a little bit farther forward and be like, all right, we'll put an actual MG position here. We could put a Hotchkiss 1914, which is another problem I have with this film is they were having the French Vickers. Yep. Yeah. No, let's just. Long story short, they would have had Hotchkiss 1914 machine guns and light machine guns because.
So it was cool to see a show when I rewatched it recently.
And I didn't catch that. So yeah, we'll have to.
It's not even IMFDB, I think. That it's
right. So you'll have to send me the frames and the minute of the actual film because that's very interesting because I did not catch that and they would have been there because at 1915 they were starting to be issued in Verdun. They were used frequently, so that's very cool. But I didn't catch that, so I'm glad you did.
First light machine gun, basically. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's the first I would call that actually the first automatic rifle.
Yeah.
Because it was handheld and it could be carried by one guy.
They're heavy. I'm lucky enough to have one.
Right.
And they fucking suck.
But still,
they're very fascinating. And for 1915, it's space magic.
Right. And like, so in 08-15.
Fuck that guy with the Mauser. I got 18 rounds.
Right.
If it works. No, it will work.
Yeah. And so like the 08-15, like the German, they call it the light machine gun. It's not. That's still a crew served weapon. Like
light in quotes.
Yeah. You've got a team that needs to follow you. Even though one guy can theoretically carry it, they can't hip fire it effectively.
One guy can carry a 50 cal. It doesn't mean you can effectively use it.
Exactly. And so that's kind of the thing is with the CSRJ 15, like that was it was interesting. Like that thing got thrown out there and used. But no, I when you get the chance, no rush, of course, but like just send me the frames that you found those in. And
yeah, well, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's right before the big attack, so
yeah.
The second big attack. But yeah, so no, it's just for its time, it's such a good film.
Yeah, it definitely it's one of those that it's like I like it. Like I understand all of its inaccuracies, whatever. I can forgive them because it's the overall like the whole shit about the higher ranking guys being in it for themselves and being so disconnected from their soldiers. Not the colonel, but like the what I'm saying, like the generals and stuff. That is timeless. It's not just French either, even though they had a mutiny the next year in their military, which is fun because of this kind of horse shit.
Yeah, a little known fact. The 1917
Jesus, not good, but like it's not exclusive to the French. Like the US military has gone through that, the Germans went through that, where it's like you've got incompetent as fuck leadership, high leadership. And your field grade officers on down, or field grade is usually general, but like your we'll just say field grade. They're going, what do I do? And either they do it or they don't, and then they face the red tape. Well, like so I like the whole overall kind of theme of it's all about the upper leadership.
Well, yeah, I was when I was watching it, I was kind of thinking to myself, this is kind of like a more consequential version of Generation Kill. To where Generation Kill is very much about like you're fighting your command as much as your enemy, and it has a lot of that in it of just people being incompetents and all that shit, and it reminded me a lot of that. So just really interesting for that sort of aspect of it, and that's why it makes it a really interesting war movie because that's what it's about. It's not about the battles,
right? And that's why I say it's timeless because. That was, 2003 that Generation Kill takes place. When I was in 2009, same thing. I've talked to Vietnam veterans, Gulf War veterans, Korean War veterans, World War II veterans of all different, every walk of life, every country, not just U.S. people, but like, and it's all a common theme is like when you get to a point where your upper leadership is so out of touch with the actual common soldier and the leaders, it's not good. And like, bad shit happens. And that's what I think this film conveyed very well and very unapologetically is they don't give a fuck about anybody but themselves.
This film does a really good job of just depicting, World War I in its real raw horribleness. not in the sense of, oh my God, trench warfare, oh my God, artillery, machine guns. Like, World War I was the real last war of the Imperial Gilded Age. Where like, soldiers literally are trash. You are worthless. Like one of the guys is like, well, he said I'm here because I'm a social degenerate. I'm not a social degenerate. Like literally that was a thing,
And
by the Second World War, soldiers have rights. France had gone through like 1,000 governments between 1919 and 1939. England, things were viewed differently. So it's just interesting, how this is really the last war of like cannon fodder soldiers. And they do such a good job in this of getting that, and just getting the fact it's just like, we're together, we're in the same trench, but I am better than you.
It was. So, it also might also be the last war where not to say nobility, but maybe wealth was a big influence on rank and structure.
It was definitely, and it was more so like it became very apparent in the Commonwealth or the British military is at that point the Brits like they had this thing where if you're of any kind of nobility and there was a war going on, well, that was your duty to go and be an officer and serve and whatever. And so many of those guys got killed. And what was funny is like before, like and during they were being killed, the enlisted guys that were, because you could be a sergeant major from a lower class, but you were in the military forever, but you're still not nobility. But these guys, the privates through the sergeant majors, saw that these guys are the exact same as them. When they're in the same situation, they're like, oh shit, we always thought they were better than us. And that kind of boiled through to other countries. But Great Britain was the most prime example that I can use because they said, okay, well, you are no different. What the hell makes you qualified to be an officer just because of your wealth? Well, here, I'm a sergeant major. I've been here for 2 years. I can keep us alive. Like, just do it. No, you're going to listen to me. And that kind of tension started. And it was like, oh, and then by the end of the war, when all the nobility, or not all of it, but like a really good chunk of the nobility had been killed off as officers because they were just fodder at that point, they started promoting like battlefield commissioning enlisted guys from the lower classes up to be officers. And the lower enlisted guys loved that because they're like, he's relatable. He knows what's going on. He's got combat experience. He's not going to fuck us, and
Mustang,
whatever.
as they call them during World War II.
Well, yeah, and that's a later term. And but for this to happen in the British military in the Great War, that was like unheard of, and it was like they didn't have a choice. So it was this revolutionary kind of thing where that kind of happened, and that's what led to the devolution. And later on after World War II, that was the absolute devolution of the British Empire, is because the nobility isn't really all it's cracked up to be, and we can see this because they got killed and they got a bunch of our guys killed, but I survived miraculously. And I'm going to go back and tell everybody that this fucker that came from a noble family was a piece of shit, didn't know what the hell he was doing. And, a guy got a battlefield commission as a sergeant major to a second lieutenant and did well, and that's why I survived. Well, word's going to spread. Well, just in a military sense, it's like, well, the nobility, well, whatever. And then societally, it kind of started to come to fruition too in the interwar years. And then World War II was kind of the nail in the coffin for that whole facade of like, yeah, well, you're nobility.
British Empire. Yeah.
Yeah, you're nobility, so you're a good officer. No, that fell apart greatly in the Great War. So
you don't get your free regiment of men to go to the colonies and go take down the revolution.
Right. Right. Yeah.
It's a different empire.
When so many of the nobility got killed.
Yes.
So many of them, like, because in the British military, like the officers, like in most European militaries at the time, the officers go first. They lead the charge. And especially in the Battle of the Somme in 1960, I'm getting off topic. I know. I'm sorry.
Here comes the devil's paintbrush.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I'm getting off topic, and I'm kind of going on a rant. But it's relevant to the Path to Glory thing because the French were not that far off from doing that. They were not better. I don't want to use that word, but they were very similar. But they weren't as black and white, I guess, as the British were. Where if you're nobility, you are an officer. If you're not, you're never going to be an officer. They did sometimes promote people, but it's weird. That's why
due to the colonial armies aspect of the French military too.
Yeah.
Yes.
The British did have a big colonial arm in their army, but the British Indian Army is different than the British Army.
Correct.
People don't know that there were two different British armies for most of the empire. So, it's interesting. But yeah, the French were definitely more liberal with that kind of thing. And the French are just basically Western European gypsies, if you really think about it. So they're looking for the next Roman Empire ever since they lost the last one. Charlemagne, is that you? But
yeah. So yeah, sorry for getting on that tangent, but I think it's worthwhile to mention that that's kind of the mentality of the First World War, and that's why you see in Paths of Glory that the officers, they go without any kind of recourse. Like you fucked up. Well, we'll figure out a way to just put this on somebody lower.
Yep. Always somebody dependent on.
Yep.
And that's what's great too, is because they have the whole inquiry and everything, and then the artillery story finally pops up. Yep. And then in the end, and it's like, you always wanted his job. You were always, and again, kind of just, we haven't touched on this yet. It's just like how people's action can be misconstrued to be other things. Oh, you didn't really care for your men. You were just looking for his job.
Yeah. Because I'm a good fucking person, unlike you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
But you got to justify it somehow, because you're a piece of shit. So you got to project yourself. And
I hate that guy, but I love that guy because he's just so cold and conniving, especially because they're eating like lunch. I'm like, oh, yeah. So he tells me you ordered the artillery to fire your own troops.
That guy is like the biggest doofus in the whole thing. Like he's just I mean, like the other general guy, with the dueling scar, like he's clearly got an agenda. The other guy's just like, okay, everything, blah 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 blah. He's just
so out of touch. Out of touch.
Fucking moron, dude. Oh well, let's just make it a dozen then. It's just like fuck you.
Yeah.
He's like classic boomer. I know he's not a boomer because he was probably born, a billion years before boomers were born. But
yeah, he's a boomer. He's a boomer.
Ultra boomer.
He's like everything is great and just assumes. Oh well, Well, and then he's criticizing. He's like, well, we're doing a good job running the war. Don't you think so?
Yeah.
I know what army I got, son. I know what I'm about.
Oh my god, It's like all of a sudden there's an army behind you. Like really?
Anybody got anything else?
Good ass movie.
Really. It's great.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
So I think we can move on to ratings now.
I love how you're eating while we're only doing an audio podcast. I really love that.
Isn't that fucking great?
God.
Isn't that fucking great?
You're chewing in my ear, and you're also talking with a mouthful
of
food.
Brian, I have misophonia. That triggers me. Okay.
Oh.
I haven't called you out on it, but you did it for the third time.
You're welcome, Nathan.
As an audio engineer, it's like
got like a big cock in my mouth, but it's not a big. Not a big deal.
Well, Michael actually did say that. So
at least when Mike spits into a spit cup, he's quiet about it.
Right. I'm experienced. I'm not a fucking noob like this guy is.
Sorry, I don't have 100,000 subscribers on YouTube.
I don't either. What the fuck are you talking about?
Oh, it's 99.9, whatever.
99,008. I think 8. Yeah.
It's all right, Brian. At least you don't have someone vacuuming in the fucking background. I've had that happen.
Well, no. What makes me sleep at night is that I'm not from Maryland. That's what really makes me feel good.
And then it cycles around again.
That must be a thing between you two.
Anything east of the Mississippi is bullshit. Anything east of the Mississippi is bullshit. Let's just leave it at that.
West of the Hudson is bullshit. So I mean, but so yeah,
clearly.
Idaho.
Yeah.
Idaho.
Never heard that one before.
I'm not the hoe. Oh.
Yep. All right.
Say the name of your state.
Are we going to spare these people who are listening to this this bullshit? What are we going to do, Brian?
For Ralph and his two friends. So let's rate this. Yeah. So on a scale of, again, it's all subjective. We're going to rate it and what we think is good. I know that Mike thinks this is going to be the best thing since Come and See. It's the best movie ever. But
dude, his face twisted up so hard on that.
I have a lot of I got strong opinions about
till we talk about that.
I cannot wait to hear this because Brian is the diehard. So I cannot wait to hear it. Mike B and I are
going to snacks I bring to that podcast.
Mike B and I are going to sit here and go because it's just going to be back and forth.
A sweat pit.
Dude, Polish hairy blood, dude. It warms me good.
Oh my god.
Okay, go ahead, Brian.
Oh yeah, so I guess I'll start. This is growing up. It's always been really a staple of war movies. It's like you want to watch a good World War I film, you could watch this. I mean, you could have caught it on TV at any point, and it's just good to watch. It's just a very good film. and it's for its small inaccuracies as far as firearms and uniforms and things. It really just as a whole, it's Kubrick, it's just so good that it just holds up well. It's not like we were saying, about All Quiet on the Western Front, how it's like, okay, you don't beat me with a hammer about the same subject, from a film that's 90 years old. It's like you can watch this multiple times and really enjoy it. That being said, I rate it very highly, and it's just something I've always enjoyed. You can always make it better. So I give it like a 9.5 out of 10. It's just a really good movie, and it's just a good staple. It's like you can rag on it for its small inaccuracies and issues, but it tells a good story. It's a good movie, and it's just watch it. Mike B, I give you the talking panda.
Right, yeah, it's I agree with you, and I give it an 8 out of 10. I'm very stingy though with shit, so that's 8 out of 10 is not bad. And but the overarching kind of message, it's a little bit in your face if you're not absolutely retarded, but it's still like it needs to be there because that's the kind of shit that went down on not just the French side, but whatever, in every war it happens that way. And yeah, so with that, the inaccuracies, whatever, that's
icing on the cake.
It is what it is. Like it would be cool if it was better, but who gives a fuck? So 8 out of 10.
Me next.
Who do you want to go next, Mike?
Oh, Mike A. I didn't know you're the fucking moderator here, Penis.
I told you I passed you the panda.
Oh, okay, whatever. I guess.
Okay.
You'll drop it down to me, and then I'll pass it to Nate. So I'd say probably 9 out of 10. The writing for this movie is great. That's what I love about it. It's technical stuff is one thing and all that, but I love the writing in it. I love Kirk Douglas in it. Kubrick had originally penned it so there was going to be a happy ending to where they got saved at the end, but Kirk Douglas was like, no, you need to have this end with them getting killed. That was his thing. Kirk Douglas was the one who said, no, it needs to end with them getting killed. And I'm glad they pushed for that, honestly.
The long, drawn-out killing, too, because you feel forever.
They're walking,
but drums and everything.
Right, but I love that was the case because, and it's kind of surprising that comes from that would come from the director. You'd think that the director would be the one who was wanting to push the hardness of it, but no, it was he actually had a happy ending in mind. And when Kirk Douglas was like, no, it has to be this way, which I think is perfect because there are a number of times in the movie where you're actually thinking, these guys are probably going to get off. They're kind of building this up to where these guys are going to get off. And because you spend time with them when they're in that cell, just moping about this whole thing, you're just like, man, something's going to happen to where they get off and we're happy. But no, they just die. It just inevitably happens.
And one gets maimed, almost beaten, like killed before even.
Right, yeah. Lash him to the stretcher to get shot.
Yeah.
Well, he might not make it with that skull fracture.
Well, he was out of it. That was a good thing. Yeah. He was out of it, but hey.
Yeah, right.
Basically.
Make sure to pinch his cheeks a bit so that he's a little bit awake.
Right, but I think it's a really good. I think it's a really interesting message that not a lot of war movies, really depict. And I agree that it's timeless. I mean, you can watch this anytime. It's like, All Quiet on the Western Front is dated. Anyone can watch this at any point. It's great. Nate.
Let me think. Everything's been said already that I was kind of thinking about, so of course that's the problem with going last.
Okay, so anyway,
yeah. Well, I think everything has been said is pretty much hit everything I was thinking about on the head. I think if I take about an aspect that hasn't been thought about, already that I've kind of already stayed. Cinematography is great. Kubrick's great at that. The effects are great, the story's great, the writing's great, everything everyone's said already. In terms of, kind of chiming in on is it dated? No, it's not. It doesn't have the problem that everyone's, as already talked about, All Quiet. And I think, I think it's a really, really great film all around. I mean, I'm not going to harp everything else that's already been said, but I think I'm on the same page as Mike B, just 8. It's great. I love it. But it doesn't compete. It doesn't compete with some of the higher ones I have, and that's just because I never saw this until 2 years ago. So it's not a nostalgia thing for me. It's a very, very good film, and I really love it. But yeah, I'd say about 8 for me. 8. Oh, hold on. I gotta piss everyone. 8 Scream Mel Gibsons out of 10. There you go. So I gotta keep that going. But yeah, no, it's a fantastic film. Absolutely watch.
Nice. So I think cumulatively we're like an 8.75 out of 10, for film. And again, I think we could all agree with the statement. It's just a good World War I movie.
Yep.
If you want a good,
it's not
90
Wind
minutes. Yes, it's not Wind Talkers. It's a good, if you can deal with watching a black and white movie, which is a thing today. Some people want to watch movies that are black and white because they're retarded.
Yeah.
That boggles my fucking mind.
Watch a good movie.
Yeah, black and white films, majority are hundreds and hundreds better than.
This is another podcast we can go on for hours talking about idiots. But yeah, if you could handle a black and white film, if you have more than 10 on your SATs and you enjoy this movie, definitely watch it.
And if you're not from Maryland.
Well, apparently you're from Maryland, you liked it, so I guess there's hope for everyone. Next week we will be doing Come and See, so come join us for the fireworks, and until next time.
I cannot wait. I literally cannot wait. I'm like fucking giddy, dude. I can't. I'm just giddy. I'm giddy just to be like, all right, here comes Brian, here comes Mike, and.
Anyway, yep, until next time. So, fuck you, Nathan.
Ow.
Later, Tater.
I'm going to end it with fuck you, Nathan. That's going to be great.
Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to leave a rating. Otherwise, Mel Gibson won't stop screaming. If you like this content, make sure to check out our Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram pages. If you want to directly support our work, make sure to check out our Patreon. All these links are in the description below. Until the next time, Scuttlebutt out.